Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Well, again, I am still excited, and I keep saying I'm going to keep saying it because I really want her to know that I want her absolutely every month so that we can continue our interesting conversations, because honest to goodness, I had the most profound experience from our last show. So I am very, very excited to have Tracy McBurney back. We've had an interesting couple of days. I think possibly the whole reason we needed to put it to today was because, we needed to watch this interesting new series that has come up that has sort of brought on more of the information as to where we're going and why. And I think that this is really good. So welcome to the show, Tracy.
Hello. So good to be back. I love being back for your laugh, and I love being back for the conversations that we have and the backward and forward that we have. It's always a joy. So, and I honestly will say you could make a fortune selling this laugh to Disney. So I think somewhere along the line, you're still operating in scarcity because it's not happening. But, okay. Yeah. And I love it. I love it. So you just keep giggling. It joy to my heart. Okay. So, yeah, so we didn't make it yesterday, and that was an interesting yesterday, and here we are today. And I said to you before we actually started today that maybe one of the reasons why all of this just had to land today had to do with watching this Revealed first portion of a 9-part documentary series that I watched last night. So my husband fell asleep after the first hour. I stayed in touch for all 2.5 hours, and it was very informative. This documentary series is being put out by the same company that put out GMO Revealed. And if you haven't seen that, it was very informative with regard to GMOs. And what I loved about that series is it was difficult information, as I perceived that this was going to be, but it was done in such a beautiful way that you didn't feel drained by the time you finished the series. And I was in 9 parts of that GMO series. In fact, I felt empowered. I felt surrounded by love. I felt love coming in at various times when information was being brought to us. And I felt the same thing yesterday. So I really like what these people are doing. So it is a documentary 9-part series that they're calling Revealed. And it's kind of sad because one of the reasons why they've had to use just the V name is because they didn't feel that they could use vaccines without having things pulled off the internet or things being targeted. And that's a little upsetting. Yeah. So anyway, just going to get into one of the things that came up for people to contemplate. So I love Jennifer McLean, one of the people that I like to look to as a spiritual teacher. And I loved her because numerous times she said and reminded us to contemplate something, just to contemplate it, just allows for our consciousness to evolve and expand, just in this idea of contemplating. And so I'm just offering that up to the people that are listening, this idea of contemplating this concept. And it's a concept around upgrading and upgrading the technology of us. So we spoke about upgrading a little bit in the first talk that I did with you back, I guess, in December. And I'm a big person for upgrading. But what this scientist talking about is upgrading us, like upgrading the immunity of us and upgrading the physicality of us and the DNA of us using viruses. And he was describing how viruses behave transformationally. And I don't think he used that word transformationally, but I've known for a very long time, I've literally said viruses are transformational. They're transformational energy. And because of how they work, they can literally get right into the cell wall and they can start to change things and take things over and rearrange things. And so he's speaking about this, and he's speaking in this first portion of this night. He's speaking about how this has always gone on for humanity. Like there has been an upgrading of how the placenta operates in the human form because viruses came in to help with that. He was just, and this stuff is documented science. Like they've seen the changes from a DNA perspective as they've studied this. Oh. And I didn't know this. And some of the things that he was bringing in, I had no knowledge of. And so I felt just a tiny bit smarter by the time I finished that segment, but only a tiny bit. Like I'm talking to you right now and I'm feeling like I am the layperson that is pretty trusting and that, really operates from a spiritual world. And I am very big on upgrading, but normally I want to literally upgrade myself or upgrade how things work using connection to spirit. And using connection to my divine self. So as he was talking, it reminded me, as he's telling us this beautiful power of the viruses and what they're doing and what the scientists who really know this and get this, they're really looking and saying, hey, you know what? These viruses, these respiratory viruses, they're coming in to aid us. They're coming in to help to upgrade the technology within us, to allow for us to be able to live better in the toxic world that we have created. And when I heard that, I was just like one of those HSOMG moments. Stands for holy shit, oh my God, actually, when I'm teaching a class, but you can't say that. and I sat with that. And I went, wow, I never really thought that way about these respiratory viruses that we've been in relationship with, the SARS from 2002, the MERS, and now this.
Right. And
that they might actually be working to do exactly that. Change and shift in the DNA, how the whole lung structure works to be able to manage the toxicity. And so that was worth contemplating. So it delivered me back almost instantly to classes that I'd sat in of German New Medicine. German New Medicine is a huge field of knowledge brought forward by Dr. Gerd Hammer, who passed away a couple ago. And I have sat in hours and hours and hours of classes and 3 or 4 levels of German New Medicine, and I still feel like if you saw my fingers right now, it would be like I understand 10 millimeters of information on this big topic. I mean, it's a little confusing, but when I was teaching psychology of disease at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, I insisted with Elizabeth, the owner of that school, I really, really, really wanted some snippets from German New Medicine put in, more from a meta-medicine perspective. I'm not going to get into why we kind of went into that modality to be able to teach it, but it was basically, I wanted students to understand germs. I wanted them to see them in a different way than they had maybe ever seen them before. I wanted to get students to contemplate the concept of not judging them. Understanding that they might actually be doing something beneficial in the system rather than, oh my God, I have this. This is in my body. It's like, well, what's it doing? What's it doing? So in German New Medicine, the tuberculosis bacteria, he would look at it and he would see it eating at the tumors of lung cancer people if we let it be there and if we let that person bring that in. And we didn't judge it. And he would look at candida turning into a fungus state from an anaerobic state, and he would see it eating at the tumors of the breast of a woman. And only eating at the tumors, like only eating at the cells that were irregular, that those were the ones that tasted good to the fungus. And yes, that would create scar tissue, and yes, that would look yucky, and yes, that would create blood, and yes, it would do all sorts of things, but he was trying to teach people, yes, all of that was happening, and yes, it was creating pain in that healing phase, but the pain was meaningful, and this is what these bacteria and were doing, and these funguses were doing on our behalf as we were healing and rebalancing as the animal of us. And Dr. Hammer never put aside the idea of God, put aside the idea of spirituality. He would very much say, I'm here to explain the animal of us, how the animal of us works, how any animal works in the presence of these bacteria and what they're doing, and funguses. and what they're breaking down and why. And he wanted the medical world, the science world, to understand that sometimes they would call disease when it wasn't disease. It was actually a healing phase of something.
Wow.
And so I wanted to bring forward those really core concepts to just have students contemplate it, and certainly to have them contemplate it in the energy medicine class that I was teaching, so that with their skill of muscle testing or with their own discernment, they'd be asking that question. Is this beneficial in this body right now? And how, and maybe the question of how is it working? What is it doing? And then another question, is there a better way? Is there a better way? Is there a divine way? Now, that's not Homer's work. That was my work. That was the, I don't like this. I don't like this. Like, I don't want to hold somebody's hand while they're, where they're bleeding and tissues coming out of their mouth. And I'm supposed to say it's okay. Yeah. Because it's just part of a process. It's like, I don't want to feel that helpless. I don't want that in my practice. So I was disturbed by some of it, and I came home from some of those earlier classes, and I came in the door one day, and I can remember because it was probably the first class, and I'd been taught some really difficult, challenging information, and I came home, and I was, let's call it fit to be tied, and I came in the door, and I looked at my husband, and he said, I just looked awful, and I said, I have to go find Jesus, I have to go find God. And he looked at me and said, where were you? Where were you this weekend? Where did you go? Did you become part of a cult? Like, what happened? Like, he just saw how distressed I was. But what that meant was, I need to find a higher way to heal. Yeah. Because the way that he described this to me and what he was asking me to do with clients, I couldn't do. I couldn't be a part of. So I needed to go find God. I needed to go find Jesus. I know, the stories of Jesus that would put his hand on somebody and it didn't create a heart attack in the process of healing. It didn't create an embolism going into the lung in the process of healing. They were just healed. But in Homer's work, working just with the animal, there were certain times when somebody healed that created an epicrisis that literally killed them. And I went, I need to look somewhere else. Yeah. So that was foundational in my practice. It was foundational in my practice. It was a changing point in my practice. It brought spirituality into everything that I was looking at for clients. And it's interesting that Dr. Joe Dispenza's, I think his newest book is titled Becoming Supernatural. Yeah. And I think he's talking about the same thing. It's healing for us at a level that is above the animal. That we have a consciousness that is wider and bigger than just about anything. In fact, they're thinking that maybe the whales, maybe the dolphins might have a consciousness that is likened to something similar to what's going on for us in how things can be healed in a different way. So, here we are back again with this video that I was watching, and this idea that this virus might actually be doing something and working to do something to be helpful to us as we live in this toxic world. And yes, some people are, getting really sick, and some people are dying from that, and I'm not discounting that, and it's always been that way. But then there are lots of us that are, they're calling it asymptomatic. We're asymptomatic. We've brought that into our system and we're managing it. Right. We're managing it. We're bringing in the information. He talked about viruses having information. That's what they're doing. They're bringing and delivering new information into our cells. And I just kind of went, okay. That's what's going on with all of the asymptomatic people. They're receiving that information. And it's potentially changing something at the lung aspect and at the physicality aspect for people. Right. And we're demonizing that. And we're not understanding that. And we're judging that, and we're fearful of that. And we're being taught to be fearful of these viruses, and we're not recognizing, things that he brings forward. He's talking about the life cycle of the virus. He's taught, why does the life cycle of the virus occur the way it does? Because we end up bringing that information into us. It shifts and changes what's going on for us. And then we have this kind of immunity to that virus, but we also have its information. Right? We have its information. We have integrated that information into us, and our lungs then potentially have become stronger and more capable of dealing with what he calls the toxic world that we're living in. So we've been needing these respiratory viruses because we have created quite a toxic world.
Sure have.
And yeah, so anyway, all of that food for thought, but it was beautiful to have him talk about that from a very physical standpoint of upgrading. Yeah. And then I go back to the first talk that we were doing, and I was talking about upgrading, like the spiritual, like the turning to the divine self, wanting an upgrade, desiring an upgrade, not necessarily desiring, now I'm just going to bring in the virus to do that job. But maybe you are bringing in the virus to do that job. Or maybe you're just downloading information. What is it that the science world is now calling? They're studying the God field within the universe, and they're calling it the quantum field of all possibility. And I love that phrase, the quantum field of all possibility. And we have that quantum field of all possibility within ourselves. So do we need the virus? Do we need the virus to deliver us the information that we are needing? Do we need it? Maybe we need it as an animal, but if we become more knowing of the supernaturalness of us, do we need to depend on the virus to do that, or just have that information delivered directly to us, directly to our cells, directly to our consciousness? It was the same thing that I was thinking about with regard, I didn't know I was going to say this until now, but because I'm just imagining it, same thing I was thinking about with this 5G technology. Right? This 5G technology that people are talking about. Can we bring forward from the quantum field of all possibility the technology upgrades to be able to deal with that within the human form of us? Right? To be able to be more well-boundary to it, or to have the human form not be, diminished by that or weakened by that. Do we need to go purchase, some plasticized bubble of technology to put on our phone, or can we just deliver something in? And I'll tell you, we're not going to be delivering something in if we're not more open-minded. We're kind of back to that topic of divine upgrade, like how I really look at myself and I say, okay, well, how do I want to do this? How do I want to evolve? How do I want to change? How do I want to make these changes? And I do get that there are some times in my life where I'm just making changes and navigating things from a very animal perspective, and the flu's coming in or something else is going on. But when I recognize that, I kind of will sit quietly and contemplate the potential of a better choice. Or, a changeover of choice. With thanks, I'm always very mindful, with thanks to the virus that showed up, with thanks to the bacteria that showed up, thanks. But, I'll take it from here. Like I would like that divine aspect of myself more involved in my life, and more involved in these choices, and more involved in these transformations and these changes. And also recognizing kind of programming that that for me, it just seems like, I fell into a pattern for a lot of years of using viruses to get needs met, using viruses to help me to get out of things that I didn't want to be a part of anymore, for example. Right. Like recognizing the virus that was connecting to, and the pathogens connected to mononucleosis, which has its connection to Epstein-Barr. And I've had an ongoing up and down relationship with Epstein-Barr by various names for all of my life.
Oh.
And seeing the programming of that, we don't do really anything without programming. And I love Bruce Lipton for really bringing that to my attention and really bringing that home, because all protein moves from signals, and signals are then programs.
Right.
And so I was looking at that and going, wow, I look back at that mono, I look back at 15, I look back at what was going on in my life at that time, what I wanted to get away from, and what I wanted to get back to. So it was both, like really just looking at that, because it wasn't quite sorted for me until I recognized it wasn't just what I wanted to get away from. I wanted to get away from a typing school that my parents had enrolled me in because I was refusing to go back to summer camp, and they said, you just can't sit at home all summer. Oh. So you have to do something. Wow. And so there I was in a very uncomfortable position at 15, and I was at this, and these women were so nice, but they were all so much older than me. There was nobody that I could consider my contemporary, but they were so sweet. But I was so uncomfortable in this typing school on Bloor Street, a mile walk from my house, every day being there at 9:00 in the morning, the smell of that place, and really just feeling like my fingers couldn't even do that job. and just really disturbed by that. My mom's mom, my grandmother, was passing away at that time. My mom had a lot on her plate, and it was quite honestly, I wanted to get out of here. I wanted to be home with my mom. I didn't want to be sick. I wanted to be home with my mom. I wanted to support her. Right. And so that virus comes in, that pathogen comes in, that relationship comes in to get those needs met. The need met to get me out of here. I'm so uncomfortable and so internally anxious about this and nervous about this and uncomfortable and insecure about this. And also the beautiful pathogens that were going to get me home. Get me home and get me home to the point where nobody was going to question my staying home. And the unfortunate circumstance of all that, it wasn't divinely guided, right? There's no way that was divinely guided. And now my poor mother's dealing with a daughter who's got a spleen that's just about to explode, and some form of jaundice, and a mother that's dying, and my mom's dealing with all of that. And I'll tell you, I was really sick, like really sick. I just could barely move. I had no energy. But of course, wow, what an amazing relationship with that virus. It was going to make sure I stayed home and no one gave an argument to that. So then you got to say, all right, thank you very much. You did your job really well.
Didn't get to enjoy your summer, but thank you.
No, there was no summer. I was really sick for the entire summer. But I do remember at one point, and so so that would have been end of June, and this would have been end of August, I think. It was the end of August, and I talked my mother into letting me go to the ELO concert because I bought tickets like months before then. And it was at the CNA. So it was back at that time when the CNA was outdoor concerts. And I still wasn't feeling that great. And the mother of then, I just think she was so done. Because normally I would think my mother just absolutely would not say yes to that at that particular point, but she did. And I went, and I paid the price for that for a couple of weeks after that. But yeah, I think that was the only thing I did, was that ELO concert. And it was a great concert, big spaceship. It was this giant spaceship that they created. It was quite unbelievable. But yeah, and then just flatlined for another couple of weeks. So anyway, it's interesting to reflect on all of that. So it was definitely not, I think my point being, it definitely wasn't the divine me that was in charge of any of that. Didn't design any of that. It was the pathogens. the bacteria, the viruses that came in to help to manage the circumstance, the stressful circumstance that I was in. And yeah, it was just doing the work, like doing the Ho'oponopono work, doing the work on, the forgiveness of me for, what I couldn't handle, what I couldn't deal with, an environment of older women, learning a skill set with my fingers that I just couldn't deal with. And, the anxiety around that, the insecurity around that, being in a room of, people twice your age and really having no friends, even though these people were trying very hard to make friends, and just all of it. And then the Ho'oponopono work, the energy work that needed to get done on the other half that I couldn't see for the longest time. So I only did half of the work, which was my need to get home, my need to be with my mother, and my need to stay with her, and my need to be with her, and my need to support her, and my need to, at whatever cost, right? And there's the other piece, at whatever cost, the desperation of that. And then I'll always say to clients, there's been some clients that have come into my office, and they've literally admitted, you're not my cup of tea. I wouldn't necessarily be here if I wasn't so desperate. Yeah. And and that's happened a couple of times. And I will very compassionately say to these people, because now they're saying, if I weren't so desperate, but I'm now willing to try anything. And I'm like, okay, well, let's start there, because I don't actually want you to be willing to try everything. I'm very happy that you're here, but to be willing to try everything would have you putting your feet into a bunch of things that aren't necessarily going to work for you. I'd want you to be only willing to do the things that are going to work for you and are going to help you. And I'd want you to shut the door to anything that was not going to be helpful to you. I would never want you in a place where you are so vulnerable right now to be willing to take on anything and dip your feet into anything. And so that's where we would start with them. But that's where I was. I was desperate to get home. Desperate to be there with my mother, desperate to just, be there with her. Right. To make sure that she was okay. And really, it was also to make sure that I was okay. If she's okay, then I'll be okay. Yeah. Right. Somehow the two of them intertwined, as they are a lot of the time for children and parents. And it was, And so there I am with, back to the idea of programming, there I am with the programming that then connects to that virus, and then how many years later it's university and it's cytomegalovirus. And that's just a remake of mononucleosis. Right. That the medical world at that time, when I was so sick again, couldn't seem to figure out. Right. So I was literally going to the health services and university saying, I've got mono again. Like, you can't have mono again. But I was so sick, and I was like, but I have mono again, and I can't get out of bed, and I have no energy. Right. And again, it took years. It took, I think, 4 or 5 years before a doctor that wasn't part of the medical world at U of T and their services actually, said, she opened up I'll never forget that day. She's now retired. She's been my family doctor since then. And she opened up a medical textbook. She had time for me. And she opened up a medical textbook and she pointed to this and she said, read this. And it was on cytomegalovirus. And I read it and I started to cry. And I said, that's me. She said, I know. And I'm sure that we're going to find the antibodies for this in your blood. And she said, so the good news is I really think that this is what's going on for you. And the bad news is there's nothing that I can really do to help you with this. Except tell you to rest. And I think she told me to take vitamin C and drink lots of fluids, clear fluids. And basically she couldn't tell me anything more than that. But yeah, the test came back, the antibody was there, and I was dealing with that virus. Now, I didn't know what I just found out, that the virus was upgrading things, giving me information. What information I didn't know, but it seems that, I think my point being, it's been a very interesting program to bring back that virus to transform things in my life.
Right.
Right? And I've been thinking about this today as I was making coffee. It's like, am I resistant to learning? Am I resistant to the information that virus keeps bringing in? Am I receiving it? Am I, because I'm in a continued relationship with that virus. Or is that just my favorite virus? Is it my favorite virus when I want to get out of things, when I want to get back home? I've been concerned about my mom even now. Right. She's, locked down with my dad, and that's been, they've been, quite dealing well with all of this, and amazingly well. But I don't like the idea that she's locked down with my dad and that I can't see her and that I can't go to their house because my dad's so upset and afraid because he has some of these conditions that would make him very susceptible to having problems with this virus.
Right.
So I'm not visiting my mom, except I did a week ago because, of course, I'm that child. I kind of called and said, Mom, you do shop every week, right? And she said, yes. And I said, and you do go to Shoppers Drug Mart every week, right? Usually on Thursdays. She said, yes. And she said, but I'm not really doing anything else. And I said, okay, well, why don't I meet you there? I know Dad's not letting me in the house, but why don't I meet you there and we can just do grocery shopping together or Shoppers Drug Mart shopping together. And that's what we did last week for the first time since Christmas. And, did that calm something down? Maybe within me? Did it calm something down? Did it make it that maybe if I was dancing a little bit with this virus, that maybe I didn't need to use it so much to get that need met? To be with my mom, to know that she's okay? Because clearly being with that virus, think about this for a second. If I have a pattern for using that virus to get that need met, to get home, to get back into the house that's my parents' house, to get back to be with my mom, if I have all that pattern still operating, then how would that actually be working this time? And the answer is it wouldn't, right? I'd be following a program that would absolutely not get that need met. It'd be flatlining me in this house so that I wouldn't even be getting out of bed.
Right.
And then there'd be no way that I was getting into my mother's house. There'd be no way that, right? It's just, and so it's kind of like the beauty of looking at all of that is recognizing even programs then become obsolete. They become obsolete. They become something you can't follow anymore because they just land you in a place that's so different than the place that you want to be. That then you can question them and release them.
Right.
And on my piece is release them with thanks. With thanks. Thanks. You helped me the first time, then I developed a program around this, and maybe you even helped me in university. But this isn't helpful. This isn't helpful now. This isn't getting me back into my parents' house. This isn't getting me back in connection with my mom. This isn't helpful. So, thank you. But it's almost like if you think about a program, and it's almost like you've attached yourself to that energy. You've attached yourself to that virus. You've become dependent on that virus to get something done. And almost like a codependent relationship.
Yeah.
And I need to, self-authority. I need to be released from that now, and I need to release you, virus. I need to release you. Fully and completely, I need to release you. I don't need you anymore to get me out of things, and I don't need you anymore to get me into or back home to my mother's house.
Do you think this thing can seg into self-care somehow? Because I think that there was something around that. With you.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, of course it can. And it is, I think we were talking before we even got on this call. One of the things that they say about viruses is that they have the capacity to be mind controlling, as do certain parasites. So I remember saying to you before we when we were just talking about why I needed to waylay this until today, I said, very kind of offhanded, but I said, maybe there's a virus. Maybe there's a virus that just was taking over. Maybe there's a mind-controlling parasite that's been taking over my consciousness for the last little while, because I've been really, really, really crappy about taking my supplements. The supplements that I know really help me to navigate my job well with clients. Like, I need a nice amount of B12 in my world, a nice amount of B6, like the things that take care of central nervous system, a nice amount of essential fat for what's going on with my nerves, and to just help central nervous system work, because I think a lot. I use my brain a lot when I'm working with a client. Right. And I wasn't doing that. And I remember saying to you, I wonder if I got taken over by, a mind-controlling energy, which can be viral and it can be parasitic, that literally was interfering with my taking care of me like that. And it was when I finally, I said to you, I feel the other day, and I said, let's just move this to the next day if it's not a hard deadline, because I felt like I was in this tornado. I was in a tornado. I hadn't landed in Oz. I was just in this tornado. And I couldn't figure out, is this psychic attack? Is this something going on with my nerve? Like, what's going on? And I felt like it was all of it. It was like my central nervous system, my nerves, my physical nerves couldn't deal with what was going on energetically. And I brought myself energetically into something that I do believe was a little bit of a psychic attack. So I was incapable of grounding myself, moving this out, taking care of me. It was very problematic. And it was one of those moments where I just literally had to throw my hands up, recognize that I'd got myself into a tailspin. And that was a moment that in my head, and I've done this on several occasions, I just put an SOS out to the angels. It was almost like, I can't deal with this. I've made some physical choices of self-care or non-self-care that have made me vulnerable here. I know it. And I think maybe my mind or brain's been taken over by something. But I'm literally sitting in this place swirling like Dorothy not landing in Oz. I'm a mess. I don't have a brain that can figure this out. I don't have a heart that I'm kind of connecting to right now. I'm a mess. And it was SOS to the angels. I didn't say it out loud. I said it in my mind. And that literally gave permission to the angelic energies that I work with in the spirit realm to just come in to help. It's almost like, and I say it in energy medicine class, heal me now, tell me about it later. Like if there's something for me to know, I trust that it will come in after, but I really just need the healing now. Right. And so the healing being information. So information, new truths, divine truths coming in where I'm messy. Love frequencies coming in, pure love frequencies coming in where I'm messy and vulnerable and corrupted. Pure peace frequencies coming in where I'm messy and vulnerable and corrupted. Like there's clearly, as I'm spinning in this tornado, my government, the government of me, is corrupted. Mm-hmm. And I take responsibility for my part in the corrupting of that. Right? And so, yeah, then it just all seemed to sort itself out. And then I just became quite me. So, yeah, quite me, like quite grounded, quite stable, quite okay, and then it was interesting just to take that adrenal formula that had that nice amount of B12 in it, and to take the adrenal formula that had a really nice amount of B6 in it, and to take an essential fat, and to take an algae capsule that had all those trace minerals in it, and to just take those things and really just kind of go, yeah, that feels better too. That feels physically better too. So it felt like the angelic realm had really done something to bring the tornado down to nothing and ground me energetically. And then when I took those supplements, I just kind of went, yeah, okay, all right, I'm back, I'm here, I'm grounded, I'm present, I'm in physicality. Yeah. So, yeah. And we talked about, I was laughing about the concept that I always said, how can you get to an age and forget how old you are? But I'm actually sitting there going, am I 57 or am I 58? I'm just confused about that now. But anyway, I'm definitely past 55. And it's just been an interesting time frame, turning 50. Yeah. It's been interesting being in the decade of 50. It's been problematic. It's been a very different decade than 40. Mm-hmm. It's been and I don't know where you are in time and space, but I remember Dr. Christian Northrup saying she wasn't going to write a book on menopause until after she'd been in it. Mm. And she kept her word, and she didn't write it until after she'd gone through it. I have her book. I've read portions of that book. And that's kind of where I've been for all of my 50s is, firmly ensconced in menopause, and it's a bit of a ride.
Oh, it's a fun one.
Well, it's different. It's filled with programs. Like, where are you, Laurie, and where are you age-wise?
Yeah, I'm not that much younger than you.
Okay, so you're in your 50s.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so to me, it's like 50s is just filled with programming. Yeah. It's just filled for women. It's just filled, or at least I'm involved in I've been involved in some really programming that I've just been, it seems like just corrupted by. Right from the very first moment that I was in my 50s, I felt corrupted by this programming. It has been programming that you just don't feel as secure in your being. Or at least I'm just going to speak about me. I have not felt as secure in my being in my 50s. I have not felt as valuable or worthwhile or worth paying attention to in my 50s. It's almost like I had a self-esteem that was a nice place in my 40s, and then it's like somebody pulled a plug and went, so that's where you were? Well, this is where you are now. And it's almost like a roller coaster just went poof, and down I went. Right. And if I'm in the game of life, I'm going, crap. I just stepped on a tile that said take 10 steps backward. Right. And you're going to land in a murky pond. And that's kind of where I felt right from the beginning of 50. And I've been taking steps back from that 10 step backward, and I'm out of the murky pond, but it's been a backward roller coaster, and it's a lot to do with hormones, but it's also a lot to do with and the hormones and when there's no progesterone that your ovaries are making anymore, and there's no estrogen that your ovaries are making anymore, and everything, if there's a little bit of it, it's being made by somewhere else, I believe the adrenals. Then what goes on at the physical level as a result of that? And then what happens to the muscles as a result of that? And then what happens to your psychology when you feel the muscles doing that? Like the muscles aren't as strong. And then do I feel as capable? And the answer is no, I don't feel as capable. It does affect the psychology as you're kind of feeling something deteriorate, a little bit. Like you're just going, I'm just not the same body. I'm just not in the same body that I was in 5 years ago. Is this only me or is this you?
Oh, no, this is me too.
Just my experience. Is it just me? Am I just lonely out there in my 50s? And other people are sitting there going, no, I didn't experience that till 70. Wow, you're a mess.
Wow, no. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so it's been a trip. And it's kind of weird to just, fall into something where your sense of self just takes a nosedive. Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting. So anyway, so then the self-care piece is also interesting. I think we've talked about it before. I've always had a struggle with what you would call formal exercise. Never liked it. Never liked it. Wasn't good at physical activity when I was a kid. I was fine at being physical. I mean, my first career was in the restaurant business, so I was up and down stairs and back and forward and walking and running and moving for all the years I was in that career. So physicality wasn't the issue, but formal, physical, let's go play volleyball on a volleyball court, let's go play basketball with your buddies. It's like I wasn't the person that did any of that. I wasn't good at any of that. I didn't take time to be good at any of that. I made choices maybe a long time ago in childhood about not being good at any of that stuff. And so I just was never a part of people's teams. I was never, there was a lot of negative kind of programming around physical sports, especially the ones that had to do with anybody depending on me to do well.
The competitive part.
Yeah. Anything that had anybody wanted to turn into competitive, that was just not something that I wanted to play at, with the exception of ping pong. Now, I will tell you, I am a very good ping pong player, and I like ping pong a lot, and that's where the competitive edge comes out. But I've never really played ping pong as a double thing. It's just me against an opponent, and I can get, there's an interesting competitive edge to that, but mostly that's not me. So I was a dancer. I liked to dance. I liked rhythmic movement in gym. I liked the things that nobody looked at me and said, our whole day is dependent on whether you do well in this.
Right.
So I never really had, I guess my point being, I never really had a great relationship with any of that. I have weak ankles traditionally, always. And so the figure skating thing was out when I was a kid. I just couldn't manage to stand up or keep myself doing all the beautiful things I wanted to do on the ice with a little, twizzled skirt. Did ballet for a little bit, but I just found that really boring when I was little. And then I would dance. I would dance. And that was what I did. And and then, it was hard as you got older and you got busier and it wasn't that a formal dance, anything or class became part of my world. And it's just physical exercise and I have always had an interesting
relationship.
Non-relationship, really.
Okay.
And, it is interesting because if you get to 50s and you don't have that in place, like you don't have just a kind of a routine of that in place that you like, that's not torturous to you, but you actually like. And I had exercise asthma. So, if I did something too much that was physical, there was a cost that got paid for that. So I didn't really have programming that said, hey, this is good for you.
Right.
If I danced for too long and really felt winded like that, I just stopped dancing. And that wasn't dependent. I wasn't dependent on anybody in that regard. That's been a bit of a challenge. It's been a bit of a challenge and I don't have good programming for that. I have good programming for taking support supplements, and I have a pretty good programming for being, pretty good with my diet. But this movement piece, it's a bit of a bugaboo.
It's funny, I was just thinking that word. When you said it, I was like, a bugaboo. Yeah.
Mind you, you go up and down all of those stairs. Like, I don't know how many times a day you actually get out of your house. But to get out of your house and go up and down the stairs that you do every day, terrifying. And actually fairly good exercise. So
very good exercise. But my blessing is that I'm so close to the lake. My walks, that's my thing.
And do you do those every day?
I do. And I mean, I've had some physical things where my health just was too not there. And so that would kind of be my counters to know where I am. Now I've been with my Fitbit counting my steps, and lately lately I've been getting more distant in less time. So it's like, okay, so I'm finally getting kind of back to, but yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it when I'm feeling good. But when I don't feel good, then getting out of bed is a nightmare. But yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that. I really enjoy it when I'm feeling good. And I'll sit there and go, I don't know if I really enjoy it ever.
Right.
Whether I'm feeling good or whether I'm not feeling good. And then I kind of sit there and say, is there something really wrong with me? Is there something really wrong with me? That I wouldn't actually go for a really nice long walk somewhere, a really nice hike and go, wow, I really feel good for doing that. And I wonder sometimes if it has to do with my lungs, if it has to do with just that exercise asthma and just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I can't really say that I'm a person that for this lifetime, you know, stepped into physical activity, came out the other end of physical activity and went, oh, I feel great for doing it. I don't think, even dancing, I feel like I love to dance. So if I danced, I'd dance and dance and dance and dance and dance and dance and dance. And then I'd be so exhausted, I'd just sit down and go and just be puffing and huffing and puffing away. And I don't think in that moment, if somebody came to interview with me with a microphone and say, hey, do you feel great after doing that? I'd go, like, leave me alone. I'll talk to you in an hour. Right? I had fun doing it, but do I feel great after it? Right. And I can't ever say that was my thing. I can't ever say that, you know, that's, you know, an hour after I finished all that great dancing that I'd say, you know, I feel just amazing for having done that. Yeah. And I don't know what that says.
Well, I mean, it has something to do again with your childhood and the asthma stuff. That's a clear, I mean, and the virus, I mean, it all sort of ties together to how you feel, right? Like to me, going out on a sunny day and going for a nice long walk near the water, I just feel invigorated and wonderful as long as I'm feeling okay. If I feel like crap, I take a walk and it just feels like I'm dead weight. And it's like, oh, I can't wait until this is over. But when I'm feeling great, being out in the sun and going for a walk near the lake, I just feel, yeah, I feel great. Even in the cold. It's like, yeah, this feels good. But if I'm feeling low and I try to do my walk, which I do, I really have to push through it.
Yeah, so I can do this feels good. Like I can walk out of my house today because there's sun out there. And it doesn't matter how cold it is. If the sun's just sitting there kind of beaming, this feels good. It feels good to get out of my house and get the oxygen that's out there versus in my house. And we've done a pretty good job with air purifiers and stuff in the house for us for years. But getting out to that fresh air outside, that feels good. I don't know if I've ever done that feels great. It feels good. It feels different. It feels good. The invigorating word, maybe I'd be invigorated by you and I walking on the beach, talking about whatever we were talking about, like having this conversation.
Right.
Having this conversation or the conversation that we'd had a half an hour ago. Maybe I'd be invigorated by the conversation that we were having, more so than it'd be invigorated by what it was that I was seeing.
Right.
I'm just wondering how jaded I might actually be.
I don't think it's jaded. I think it has, everything to do with how you saw your world with regards to that. I mean, I hated competition. I know where it came from. My mom she was a terrible winner and a terrible loser. Usually people are terrible losers, but when she would win, she was kind of nasty. Kind of, not nasty, but would rub your nose in it. And I couldn't stand it. Even though I'm very competitive, I like to think I'm not competitive, but I know I am very competitive. So I just would completely stray away from anything that felt competitive. So walking for me, I don't have to compete against anybody. And so that feels good. But yeah, that's why I would never do a race or anything like that. Because then it would belittle me. Like then I would think, oh, I'm not good enough and blah, blah, blah. And all that, story that was around that. But as long as I can do it by myself, or not by myself, but I mean, I love going with walks with other people, but as long as I'm not competing, then it feels different.
Okay, let me bring up this, because I am curious, because you're sensitive, and you're sensitive like I am.
Yes.
I find it very challenging. Like, I have not worn a watch in years. Years I have not put a battery of a watch on my wrist. I have them. I have a beautiful Movado watch that ex-boss's wife gave me a long time ago. It's a gorgeous watch.
Me too.
I don't wear it.
Me either.
And I was and putting a Fitbit on my wrist. My mother-in-law left her Fitbit here by mistake a couple of years back. And she said, "Oh, just keep it. I'll get another one." And I went, No, I'll mail it back to you. I don't want it.
Right.
You know, I put it on my wrist and I could just feel an energy there. Like, does it ever bother you, or do you wear it all the time?
I wear it all the time. I love I love the whole sleep bit, so that I can see how long I've slept and how many minutes I've been awake and whether it's a deep sleep or not. I love that part of it.
And it doesn't keep you awake?
Nope.
Wow. And it doesn't bother you at all? Like, you just put that on and it's like you just integrate that into your being and you're good?
Somehow I have, yeah.
Wow.
Because I think I understand what you're saying. If I leave my phone, if I don't put it in airplane mode when I go to bed, it bothers me. But this doesn't seem to do that. And maybe that's part of it, because even though it's still collecting data, it's not going anywhere. It's just staying in the watch. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that's the same kind of idea as what happened when we put Wi-Fi in the house.
Right.
We made it. We were having some problems with Bell, so we're part of the Bell Vibe system. Not that I'm sitting here selling it to anybody, please. We're part of that system, and we have boxes. So we have these wired boxes throughout the house. So there are 4 televisions in our house, one in the kitchen, one in the living room, basement, and our room upstairs. And they each have one of these boxes, and they're hardwired. And we were starting to have real issues with pixelation on the televisions. So they finally said to us, "There's nothing else we have to offer you. We're going to have to change all of this over to Wi-Fi." And I was just like, like, I know Wi-Fi is around us all the time, but I really just didn't want to up-amp this in the house. So I finally said yes to this, as long as we kept the old boxes. I wouldn't let them take the old boxes because I wasn't sure I was going to stay with this format. And I didn't know what we were going to do. And so the guy came in and he changed everything over from the cable lines to something that was these little boxes. And I could feel, I'm telling you, I could feel it as he was connecting up each one of these little Wi-Fi transmissions. I could feel it coming right into the house and right into my body. And one by one, I could feel these kind of connections come in line, like they were now talking to each other. And I could feel it all happening in my body. It was the craziest thing. And I could feel my body. I think the more important piece here is that I could feel my body being uplifted by the experience of the one by one Wi-Fi things connecting and communicating to each other that I could feel in my body. And my body started to blow up like a balloon.
Oh.
And it started to take weight off my body. Like, I felt lighter for the fact that I was experiencing this. And I was just like, okay, this is very odd.
Yeah.
Like, this is very odd. I felt like I didn't feel the same weight on my knees. I didn't feel the same weight on my ankles. I just felt better. I don't know how else to describe it. Lighter. And so then I kind of went, okay, all right. So then do I think, is this good for me? And I got a yes. I'm connecting to the body. Body, is this good for you? I got a yes. I go to divine. I go to divine aspect of self. Is this good for me? I got a no. Okay. Does my body now believe that it's good for it? And I got a yes. And I said, okay, divine. Is there some sort of programming here? Is there something going on in the Wi-Fi programming that literally is transmitting something to my body to tell my body that it's good for it? And I got a yes. And I was just like, it's another one of those HSOMG moments.
Yes.
Right? Because it's that, because then if the body's getting that programming, then it's bringing that in. It's integrating with it. It's sympathetically resonating with it and bringing that in.
Right.
And I went, wow. So now there's like this interface. Now there's like this non-questioning interface between that Wi-Fi network and my body. And things are going right into the cells of my body through that network.
Right.
Because it's good for my body, apparently, but not as my divine saw it.
Right.
So we let that live that way for about 2 weeks. And I started to become a little bit more anxious. And I don't consider myself to be an anxious person.
Right.
And I just was like, day by day by day, I think that as my nervous system was living with this, because I have a nerve issue, I have a decreased myelin nerve issue. And as my nerves were living with this and living this way, it was like I was just becoming edgier and a little more intolerant and, little by little. And then finally I just said, and it was just like, it just felt like there was something going on in my body that was just rising, that was just getting harder and harder to deal with. And I finally said to my husband, we have to unplug these. We have to unplug these. I just think this is so not good for me that we just have to unplug these and go back to the old system. I don't know what we're going to do, but we got to go back to the old system. And so he unplugged them one by one by one, and I could feel the balloon deflating. I could just feel it deflating and deflating and deflating. And then when the last one had been unplugged, actually it started, the second last one, I just started to cry.
Wow. And
I just looked at my husband and I was sobbing on the couch and I said, I feel so much better. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that, we can't have this. Like, I just feel so much better for not having this. And then he was able to figure out something that had gone on with Belle where they decreased the transmission coming into the house. They'd done that on their own in the back door. My husband figured that out and got that all sorted. And we've never looked back. We've never had a pixelation issue.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. So on a different note, I think that Belle through the back end was literally trying to get us, to push us to go to this new system, which is their new fiber optic system. And that's just where they want people to be now. And I don't want to be there.
Right.
Anyway, I just wonder if that, I don't know anything. I just wonder if that's kind of what's happening with the Fitbit is my point, that the same thing is happening in that. And yeah, so I'm not so sure I'd be able to deal with that either.
Right. Is there a way, though, that you can ask that your divine body do some sort of upgrade so that you can?
Well, it's something to consider. No, it's something to consider. But I don't think that I was up to the task when I was managing it.
Right.
I feel like I needed to get away from it to be able to do something maybe quietly. I don't think I was up to the task while it had just taken over. Right. But that's what it felt like, a takeover of the body. Like, imagine that. That there's a program in the Wi-Fi that literally is telling our bodies that this is good for it.
Right.
That's a little disturbing.
It is a little disturbing, yes.
Yeah, and then you just wonder what else is coming through the Wi-Fi networks, right? I don't know. That's for another topic on another day.
Yes.
So probably one of the reasons why that didn't even occur to me is because there was this program somehow, some way that was telling my body to believe something that wasn't true.
Right.
So it'd almost be like wanting some divine upgrade for the Wi-Fi technology. Right? Like how can that Wi-Fi technology be shifted and changed so it is actually true? So it's actually true, not that we're being told that it's true, that it's good for us, but that it actually is true. And is that even possible? All these these are the kinds of things that I contemplate. These are the kinds of things that invigorate me. Mm-hmm. These crazy mental exercises, but which is why I do need to remember to take B12, B6, essential fat. My mind's a pretty busy mind. So anyway, so there we are. I don't know if I was helpful to anybody with regard to self-care, but anyway, it's an interesting journey for me. It's a journey, and it's been a more interesting one since I turned 50.
And I think that's part of the issues, that we're not always aware of what's going on, and we don't always ask ourselves when things kind of feel, we just kind of get caught up in the everyday crap that sort of happens that we kind of forget, right? We kind of lose touch with us because we're kind of fending off everything else that's happening.
Yeah, and I think that a part of self-care for me is taking that time for myself in the morning. Like my husband's not a morning person. It's actually quite lovely that I am more of a morning person, and I do have those quiet times in the morning where, I'm making my coffee and it's silent. There isn't a television on, there isn't a radio on, there's no noise. It's just silence. And then I can just sit with myself. And whether it's before my coffee, after my coffee, I can sit with myself and I can contemplate. And I can contemplate and I can think about the day that passed yesterday. I can just, see where I am now. I can check in through breathing. I found out a really cool piece of information about breathing, which made me want to do it and pay attention to it more. Like, I know I'm always breathing, I get that, but I mean, really just more consciously taking in that deep breath in and that deep breath out. I had no idea that the brain, our physical brain, is actually registering. It's actually getting in touch with different organs and endocrine systems and different tissues and the blood. It's getting in touch with those on the breath in, and it's getting in touch with more of those on the breath out. And there are people that they know exactly what they are. They know exactly what organs are being gotten in touch with on the breath in and the endocrine systems and the tissues. And they know exactly what tissues, including the blood and the bones, are being connected with on the breath out. And so on every single breath in and breath out, the brain gets an idea of where we are in time and space at a physical level and what's going on with us. And I thought, that's very cool. That's very cool. So if I'm only doing these little short breaths because I'm fearful, and that's what's going on with fear, is little short breaths and holding our breath, then the brain never really gets to engage in getting those snippets of information so that it can make adjustments and start to bring things in and start to connect to heart to bring things in, because our heart's the thing that brings things in. And yeah, I thought that pretty cool. So part of self-care is that morning of some quiet moments and that morning of some conscious connection to breathing, right. And my version of meditating, which can be different depending on the day. Because I feel like working with clients, I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of being in that void space, in that empty space when I'm working with clients, bringing in divine innate wisdom. Right. So as far as having a disciplined hour every morning, I'm kind of not that person, but I am that person for making pretty good use of the silent, quiet moments of the day, of the morning.
Right. I have to say, you recommended a book, Susan Shumsky, The Instant Healing.
Yep.
It wasn't quite the price that you had gotten it for, but I waited. It came down a little bit, so I got it. And it's a lovely book. I mean, it's really filled with some beautiful prayers. Mm-hmm.
I've changed a few of them. Like, I've literally read a couple of lines and went, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
But if I sit quietly, this does.
Right.
Yes, she's lovely, and she's been around for quite a long time. I don't know what I quoted you in price, but the ebook that you can get, and you can still get through Google, is $1.98.
Okay, I didn't find that anywhere. It was on Amazon. It was 15, and all the other ones it was 15. Finally it went down to $9.99. But yeah,
you just needed to go to Google, like just you get onto Google. Like
I don't
just
think
get
it's there
connected to
anymore
Google.
on Google.
Oh,
I think
okay. Because then it was I just punched in Susan Shumsky, and then I put instant healing.
Yeah.
And then it popped up right away. That you could access the whole book through Google if you wanted to just read it. And then it literally had this little thing on the side. You can buy the ebook for $1.98.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's a shame if it's not still there. But, what doesn't surprise me, that's getting pulled off now.
Yeah, the ebook now from them is $18.99.
Oh,
I know.
how annoying.
Isn't it?
How annoying.
Yeah. So when I got it for $9.99, I was like, okay, that's way better than not that $6 made a big difference, but yeah.
Did you get the ebook for $9.99
Yes.
or the physical book?
No, ebook.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a Kindle.
Okay.
I love my Kindle. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I again, because I'm on the computer so much now with clients and Zoom and yada, 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 I'm not as much of a fan of ebooks. Again, just for all of the electromagnetic stuff and yeah.
See, I don't find the Kindle I like because it doesn't stay on Wi-Fi opening. It just sort of, when you want to download, then you can download and it'll do it. But I like it just because the background and stuff, there's no blue light or anything, so it's very plain, and you can take it outside, and the new ones are apparently waterproof. But I really like it because it's light, and it can hold hundreds of books. I can just play with it all the time. But yeah,
I love the concept that you say no blue light.
Right. I
love that concept. I have recognized myself that my relationship with blue light is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
I have problems with too much of it.
Right.
And it does keep me up, and it does keep my brain awake. Yeah, so that's interesting that you say that. All right, well, that's a good thing to know about Kindle.
Yeah, there isn't, and it doesn't have, I don't know what it is, it doesn't have the same reflection as some of the other stuff, so it's there, and you can see things, but I can get really sleepy while I read it, and it's not a problem. So, yeah.
Okay, so Kindle is like their own little, almost like iPad, correct?
Kindle is just an e-reader from Amazon. Kobo is the one from whatever, but I do like the Kindle one.
Okay, so then you put your Kindle e-reader, basically you can put it on a computer, you can put it on, or is it always on a particular device?
This is like the Kindle. You can get a Kindle app for anything. It can be on your phone, but that will still have the blue light. If you actually get a Kindle reader, it has no blue light.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe that's what I need to do.
Well,
this is
I can
a
let
good
you
conversation.
borrow mine and see if it feels right the next time I see you, just to see if it has the same.
Okay. Well, we should meet on the beach.
Yes, we should.
Meet on the beach, have an invigorating conversation. Work that out with some self-care. Do the social distancing. I don't know, you'll have to throw me your e-reader, but I promise I'll grab it.
Yeah.
Or you can bring yourself a pair of tongs, and you can use a long pair of tongs to hand it to me. I'll tell you the craziness of what's going on now. Another day you can get me started on that. Oh my goodness.
Yes, let's not.
But yeah, okay, so good. A nice little conversation about self-care that has to do with blue light. Yeah, I'm very sensitive to blue light.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, maybe we could have another whole conversation on self-care and on a different day. And I'll tell you about my failures and my successes.
Well, we've all been there, right?
It's very humbling.
Yes.
Very humbling to be me.
Yes, I watch people and think, I really wish you could get a little bit more humble. They're people that take advantage of everything, and it's like, I watch. And I get angry, and it's like, and then as soon as I get angry, I get a hot flash, and I went, yep, that's what that's telling me. Okay, relax, Laura. Settle down. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Well, that's good. It's a good thing that you recognize the connection to hot flashes and anger for yourself. It's a good thing.
It is.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It's either that or anxiety. It's one or the other, but the easier one to well, obviously they're both recognizable, but when the anger one comes up, it's like, okay, relax, let it go. Let it go.
Okay, yeah, and not so easy sometimes, right?
Oh no, no. If it was easy, well, this wouldn't be this life.
Okay, so then I'll throw out to you the concept, and I do love it. I really do, that because it really is not easy sometimes to really just let go of anger or let go of, let's call it hate, that word that people don't want to use or recognize or admit. Yeah. It's not so easy to let go of some of these really intense emotions. But going back to the talk of a previous day, saying yes to divine compassion, like recognizing I'm angry and I can't get out of this, or I'm struggling to get out of this, or some part of me doesn't even want to let go of this. I'm saying yes to divine compassion for the me that's angry, and also the me that doesn't really want to let go of this, and the me that wants them to pay, or what, right? Just saying yes to divine compassion, descending onto all of it.
Yes.
And it can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, really helpful.
Yep.
Really helpful to the menopausal women. To the hot flashes when you can't remember to take your supplements.
Even when I take them, I still get them. I'm like, okay, well.
Well, it'll be interesting then. Like maybe we could just say, hey, try this and let me know. Like try this and let me know. Because if the supplements aren't quite doing everything you want to be done, then maybe just trying to remember to integrate divine compassion into those moments and just see what happens.
Yes.
It'd be interesting. I think it'd be a great experiment for the menopausal women.
I agree. My usual go-to is let it go and come into acceptance, but I think the divine compassion might take it the next step.
I think sometimes it's really hard just to move there. Like it's almost like you're trying to move from A to C,
yes.
Right? I'm trying to move from where I am now in anger to C, acceptance, and maybe D, compassion. Like it's too hard.
Yeah. Whereas
it's kind of like, I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm angry. And it's like, let go and accept. And you're like,
right.
No, accept what? Like, it's just like, there's just this space in between that just, it doesn't fly.
Right.
It's like you're trying to jump from one mountain to the next.
Well, I think that's what David Hawkins talks about too, in that, sometimes we're going, we want peace, but peace is like almost the last stage that he talks about. So it's like, you kind of got to move up to that place or something. But yes, I get it. Yeah.
So I think divine compassion really helps. It really helps to get you from the anger to the acceptance.
Right.
To the acceptance of the dignity of that moment for you and the dignity of that moment for exactly where it is for them. And, that everybody's kind of where they need to be in that one particular moment.
Exactly.
To be able to see where they are.
Yeah. Even if they are being selfish jerks.
Divine compassion descending on the woman named Laurie who has no compassion for the people that are selfish jerks.
You got me. Sigh.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, and then whatever that's going to come back to, the moment that you were exactly that, you were the selfish jerk.
Yeah.
Right? Even if that takes you back to 2.
Yeah. And that's usually what I try and do. I say, like, okay, so when was I right? In a way, even, acknowledging that somebody's being a selfish jerk, I'm being a selfish jerk. Yeah.
I don't know if that's that you're being the selfish jerk, but you definitely are sitting in that place of judgment.
Yes.
And the only thing I really like about knowing this concept, it's like when we're in a place of judgment, we're never clear. We're just never clear. And I just want to be clear. I want to be clear so that I can make clear decisions and carve a clear path. And so when I just see that, I just, even though it feels so right to be in that place of judgment, I just kind of sit there and go, okay. But in the same instance, it might feel so right to be here. It's like, do you want to be clear or do you want to be here?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because you can't be both. Right? So then it's a choice point. And I go, okay. And it's always, for the last couple of years, the choice point has always been, even though it was like, oh, but I just want to stay here. I'm just so away. It's just like the choice point is always choosing clarity.
Ah, I like that.
Right? Because that's really what I want be the change that you want to see. That's what I want to see for humanity is clear.
Right.
I want humanity to be clear. I want them to be clear. I want them to be really connected to that God spark of infinite possibility with themselves. That's what I want. So, what did Gandhi say? Be the change that you want to see.
Yes. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. I hope people get out of it because it kind of went from one angle to another, but it's good.
Well, we're contemplating many things, right, and
Exactly.
meandering along. So anyway, yeah, it was fun today. Mm-hmm. It was fun today. People might have turned us off a half an hour ago, but we've had fun.
Yeah. The people
Anyway,
that love us, love us.
Yeah, this has been lovely. Thank you for the opportunity to hear your laugh, to contemplate, to connect.
Yes. Well, you've been listening to News for the Heart, and we've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney. Contemplation and self-care and being clear or here. I love it. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Have a question for Laurie and want to be on the next News from the Heart show? Drop us a line via instant feedback at bmajor.org. News from the Heart is brought to you by Intuitive Soul and is produced by Major Radio for Clear Channel's iHeartRadio and bmajor.org.